In Umwaka, punishment used to be simple. Before King Obasi came to power, if a man stole, he was flogged. If a woman disrespected an elder, she was fined. If someone refused to pay tribute to the throne, their farm was seized. People were corrected, not removed. That was how justice worked, until Obasi became king. At first, nothing changed. He sat quietly in meetings. He listened more than he spoke. He did not shout at chiefs or interrupt elders. People called him calm. Some even called him kind. But in his second year on the throne, a man refused tribute. It was not a big refusal, just a small delay.
Great King, I humbly explain my delay in bringing tribute. My wife just delivered twins, and my farm was ruined by a flood. I ask for your understanding and patience, my king.
Obasi did not. He asked the man to step forward. People thought he wanted to warn him. He did not speak for a long time. Then he stood up, walked toward the man slowly, and opened his mouth. At first, the crowd thought it was a joke. Some laughed nervously, until the man's wrapper dropped to the ground without his body inside it. The laughter died immediately. No blood, no bones, no sound. Just space where a man had been standing. The king returned to his seat like nothing had happened. That was the first time. The second time, a woman questioned a new tax on palm oil traders.
My king, the new tax on palm oil traders is too much. It burdens our people. Why is it necessary? We seek only to understand the reason, so we may comply with respect.
The king answered the same way. After that day, nobody asked why again. Punishment in Umwaka changed. There were no prisons built, no flogging posts repaired, no banishment ceremonies held, because King Obasi did not send people away. He removed them completely. Meetings became quieter. Disagreements ended faster. When the king spoke, elders nodded even when they did not agree, because survival was now more important than truth. Children were warned at night. Do not argue in public. Do not challenge elders. Do not speak loudly near the palace. Not because of respect, but because of hunger. The king's hunger. And slowly, the village adjusted. Tributes arrived early. Farmers brought extra. Traders rounded up their payments instead of down. When Obasi walked through the square, people stepped aside without being asked. Because in Umwaka, defiance was digested. And the worst part, nobody knew how many people the king could still swallow. Before Obasi became king, he used to eat like every other man. That was what made the change difficult to explain. The palace servants remembered. He liked yam, he liked roasted fish, he complained when soup had too much salt. He even avoided heavy meals before meetings because he said it made him sleepy. That was before the throne. After the throne, his eating habits changed. At first, it was small. He began to reject certain foods. Palm oil made him angry. Bitter leaf soup made him restless. He stopped eating with the council entirely. When meals were brought to his chambers, they were often returned untouched. The palace cook was the first to whisper about it. The king does not eat, she told the guards one night. Yet he does not grow thin. They laughed it off until they noticed it too. His strength did not reduce. His voice did not weaken. His steps did not slow. But the food kept coming back untouched. Then one evening, the chief priest requested a private audience. Not because of tribute, not because of dispute, but because something in the shrine had changed. Sacrifices made to the gods were no longer being accepted the same way. Goats bled, but the ground felt cold. Fowls were offered, but the flames burned unevenly. The priest said the gods were watching.
The gods are watching and waiting for what has been taken that was not offered to them. I see.
The king smiled, a slow, patient smile.
And what have I taken?
The priest hesitated because he did not know how to accuse a king of something no one could explain. Outside the palace, Rumors had begun to move. Not loudly, never loudly. People said Obasi had visited the forbidden forest before his coronation. They said he had gone alone. They said he returned at night without his guards, without his sandals. Some claimed his shadow did not move with him for 3 days after. Others swore his reflection in water appeared seconds later. Nobody confirmed anything, because confirming meant questioning, and questioning meant risk. But one person inside the palace had stopped sleeping well. Prince Namdu, Obasi's younger brother. He had been there before the throne, before the whispers, before the swallowing, and he knew one thing clearly. Obasi had never been hungry like this before.
The day resistance came, it did not announce itself. It arrived like every other tribute day. Farmers gathered early in the palace courtyard with baskets of yam and tied goats. Palm oil traders stood in lines with their kegs. Even the fishermen brought dried catch wrapped neatly in leaves. Nobody wanted delay. Delay had consequences now. Among them was a man named Okichukwu. He was not known for trouble. He paid his dues, he greeted elders, he avoided palace matters unless summoned. But that morning, his hands were empty. When his turn came, the chief guard frowned.
Okechukwu, where is your tribute? I have nothing to give. Nothing. The king demands tribute from all. I bring only my loyalty. Loyalty does not fill the king's stores.
King Obasi did not speak immediately. He only watched the man, the same way he had watched others before. The council shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew how this would end. Obasi stood. Okechukwu's knees trembled, but he did not move. He had already spoken. The king stopped in front of him. No warning, no speech. He opened his mouth, and that was when something unexpected happened.
Enough.
Enough! The word did not come from the council.
This must
It
end.
came from the throne's right side. Prince Namdi had risen to his feet. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because nobody had ever interrupted the king before. Not elders, not chiefs, not even the priests. Obasi turned slowly, his mouth closed. What did you say?
What did you
he
say?
asked. Namdi did not look away. He has asked for time, the prince replied calmly. The council used to grant it. That was before, Obasi said. Before what? Namdi asked. The question hung between them. Sharp, dangerous. The courtyard felt smaller. The king's eyes darkened slightly. This man has disrespected the throne, he said, and you defend him? I defend process, not disobedience. The council stared at the ground. Nobody wanted to be seen agreeing with either of them. For a moment, it looked like Obasi would continue, like he would ignore his brother and finish what he started. Instead,
Okechukwu will be granted 3 days. But if he returns empty-handed, no one will speak for him again.
Prince Namdi sat down slowly. Okechukwu was led away, alive. That night, the palace was quieter than usual because everyone understood what had happened. For the first time since the swallowing began, someone had stopped the king, and he had listened. Prince Namdi was summoned before sunset, not by messenger, by silence. The kind that followed him down the palace corridor as guards stepped aside without meeting their eyes. The kind that made servants suddenly busy with tasks that did not exist. Nobody wanted to be near whatever this meeting would become. Obasi's chamber doors were already open. That was the first sign something was wrong. The king sat by the window, back turned, watching the courtyard below, where tribute had been collected hours earlier. His crown rested on the table beside him. He did not turn when Nnamdi entered. You embarrassed me today, the king said. His voice was calm, too calm. Nnamdi closed the door behind him. I protected the council's process, he replied. You protected a man who refused me. He did not refuse you, he asked for time. Obasi laughed, once, short, dry. You speak as if time is something people own. The prince did not answer. He had not come to argue, he had come to understand. Obasi finally turned. You think this is about tribute, about yam and
You
palm
think this
oil?
is about
The king
tribute?
asked.
About yam
Nnamdi
and palm
held
oil?
his gaze.
What is it about
What
then?
is it about then? Obasi
Control.
stepped closer.
To go.
Control. The word sat between them. Heavy.
If I allow one delay, others will try it. If I allow one voice to question me, others will speak. Soon, I will be negotiating with the same people who should fear me. You are already feared. That is not enough.
Silence followed, long enough for Nnamdi to notice something he had ignored before. Obasi's breathing. It was not steady. It
You are
rose
unwell.
and fell like someone who ran
I am
far without
hungry.
moving. You are unwell, Nnamdi said. The king's expression
I am
changed,
hungry.
just slightly. I am hungry. The words did not sound ordinary. They sounded defensive.
You do not eat. That is because what I require is not served in bowls.
Nnamdi's stomach turned. He had heard the rumors, he had ignored them. But standing this close, something felt wrong. Not in what Obasi was saying, but in how easily he said it. Before Nnamdi could speak again, the chief priest's voice came from the doorway. My king. They both turned. The priest did not enter fully. He only bowed. The shrine has rejected tonight's offering, he said. Neither brother moved. It burned without smoke, and the blood would not soak into the ground, the priest continued. Obasi's hands clenched. What does that mean? He asked. The priest hesitated, then spoke anyway. It means something is already feeding. Okechukwu returned on the third day. Not because he wanted to, but because not returning would mean running, and running would mean being hunted. So he came back. The courtyard was fuller than usual. News had moved quietly across the village. People wanted to see what would happen when time expired. Would the prince speak again? Would the king pretend to listen? Or would this be like the others? Okechukwu stepped forward when he was called. His hands were still empty. I could not gather it, he said, before anyone asked. My farm has not yet recovered. The council shifted. Nobody spoke. Prince Nnamdi stood at his place beside the throne, but his hands were folded tightly behind him. He had not slept well, because this time interruption would not be mistaken for procedure. This time it would be defiance. Obasi did not ask questions. He did not pretend to consider mercy. He simply stood. Okechukwu fell to his knees. My king, your time was given, Obasi said. The man looked toward the prince, not because he expected rescue, but because hope does not die easily. Nnamdi did not move. He could feel the eyes of the council on him, waiting, watching, measuring whether he would rise again. Obasi noticed and smiled, slowly, like someone who had prepared for this. He stopped in front of Okechukwu, opened his mouth, and this time, nobody said anything. The man's wrapper dropped to the ground, empty.
Your
The
time
child
was given.
screamed somewhere at the back of the courtyard before being silenced by his mother's hand. The king turned away, as if nothing had happened. But something had, because when Obasi reached the steps of his throne, he paused, just for a moment. His hand moved to his chest, pressing, like something inside had shifted. Nnamdi saw it. So did the chief priest. But neither of them spoke, because the courtyard was no longer the place for truth. That night, the palace was quieter than usual. The king did not leave his chambers. Food was brought, returned untouched. Water was offered, refused. And from behind the closed doors, palace servants swore they heard something. Not chewing, not coughing, something heavier, like a man trying to breathe around what he had taken in. The chief priest did not sleep that night. He remained inside the shrine long after the lamps had burned low and the village had gone quiet. Offerings had been made again after sunset. Again, they failed. The fire burned, but without smoke. The blood poured, but the ground rejected it. He had seen signs before in his years of service. Bad harvests, impending war, drought. This was not the same. This felt like interruption, like the gods were being fed elsewhere. Sometime past midnight, the shrine door moved. Not pushed, not opened, moved. The priest froze. He had barred it himself. Slowly, the wooden frame creaked inward,
and someone stepped inside, barefoot, covered in dust, alive. It took a moment for recognition to arrive, because the man standing in the doorway should not have been breathing. It was Okechukwu. The priest staggered backward. You! Okechukwu's eyes were open, but unfocused, like someone who had woken from a dream he could not leave behind. His chest rose unevenly. His hand trembled. "The dark," he whispered. The priest's skin prickled. "What dark?" he asked carefully. Okechukwu swallowed. "There are others." The words dropped like stones. The priest stepped closer. "What do you mean?" "They are there," the man continued. "All of them. The woman from the palm oil tax, the trader from Nko, the boy who spoke in the square last month." His voice cracked. "They are not dead." The priest's heart began to pound. "Where?" he asked. Okechukwu's gaze shifted toward the palace. Inside him. Silence swallowed the shrine, not because the priest doubted what he had, but because he believed it immediately. Footsteps approached from outside, guards, making their rounds. Okechukwu's head snapped toward the sound. Fear returned to his face. "They cannot know," he said urgently.
They
The
cannot
priest nodded
know.
once and led him
This
toward
way,
the back of
quickly.
the shrine, hidden for now. Because if the king was not killing those he swallowed, then something far worse was happening. Prince Namdi did not believe it at first, not because Okechukwu was lying, but because believing it meant accepting something the throne should never hold. The chief priest said quietly, "The shrine rejected sacrifices because the gods are not hungry." Namdi stared at the man standing before him, alive, trembling, returned from inside the king. "Then who is?" the prince asked. Nobody answered immediately, because the answer lived in the palace. That night, they went to Obasi's chambers, not as brothers, not as priest and king, but as men who needed truth before the village lost what was left of itself. The guards were dismissed without question. Inside, the king sat on the floor, his crown untouched, his eyes open, like someone who had been waiting. "I know why you are here," Obasi said before they spoke. Namdi stepped forward. "Tell me it is not true." The king smiled weakly. "I cannot." Silence spread. "You went to the forbidden forest," the priest said quietly. Obasi nodded. "Before your coronation?" "Yes." Namdi's chest tightened. "Why?" "Because our father was weak." The word surprised both of them.
He negotiated with chiefs who should have obeyed him. He reduced taxes when traders complained. He begged neighboring villages not to invade instead of preparing our men. They called it fear.
The room stilled. In the forest, I was offered something else, a way to ensure obedience, a way to make defiance impossible. Namdi's voice dropped. What did it ask in return? Obasi did not answer immediately, because some bargains sound foolish when spoken aloud.
Room for those who refused me.
The priest closed his eyes. "You agreed?" Obasi laughed softly. "I thought it meant fear, reputation, authority." His hand moved slowly to his chest. "I did not know it meant hunger." The word came out broken. It began small, a tightness when someone questioned me, a pressure when tribute was delayed. His breathing grew uneven. The first time I swallowed someone, it stopped. Namdi felt sick. "And now?" he asked. Obasi looked at him. And for the first time since the throne, he looked afraid. "Now it grows when I try not to." Silence followed, heavy, real.
The people you swallowed are alive. I know. Then release them. I cannot.
The ground beneath them trembled slightly. A low sound moved through the chamber, from inside the king, like voices trying to remember speech. Namdi stepped back, understanding finally settling. This was not punishment anymore. This was consumption. And it would not end with tribute, because hunger does not negotiate. The first person to speak was not the priest, it was the prince. "Then we cannot leave you on that throne." Obasi did not argue, because kings defend power. But this man was defending control, and he had none left.
The hunger will grow. It fed on 1, it fed on 2, it will not stop at 10. I know. Soon you will not wait for disobedience. You will begin to look for it.
The word hung heavy.
outside the chamber, the village slept, unaware that the punishment they feared was no longer tied to their actions, but to the king's need. Namdi stepped closer. Can it be reversed? The priest hesitated, then nodded once, but not by him. Both brothers turned. The forest does not take gifts back easily, the priest said. It must be forced.
How? With surrender. What does that mean? It means you must return yourself.
Silence, because kings are not meant to be offered. But Obasi had already offered himself once, just in a different way. Before dawn, the palace moved quietly. Guards were dismissed, servants were sent away. The council was not informed. Only 3 men walked toward the forbidden forest: the king, his brother, and the priest. By sunrise, the ground inside the shrine began to shake, not like an earthquake, like something shifting direction. And in the village square, a man appeared, then a woman, then a boy. All of them confused, all of them breathing. The swallowed were being returned, one by one, as if the king was being emptied somewhere else. The villagers gathered slowly, fear mixing with disbelief, because punishment was walking back into the village alive. But the palace throne was empty, and it remained that way. Prince Namdi was crowned before sunset.
With this crown, I accept the sacred duty to lead. From this throne, justice and prosperity shall flow.